Hey guys, I wanted to record a short video and talk a little bit about getting your images to print. And before we start on actual process inside of Lightroom for getting your images ready for an inkjet print um, or exporting them out as a JPEG or a TIFF to go to a photo lab, I wanted to talk a little bit about monitors and monitor calibration because that's a very important, and that should be your first step that you guys should take if you're going to be printing. Okay, so I'm going to jump here onto the web for a moment. And this right here is the kind of monitor that you're going to probably be looking for um, if you're going to be serious about your printing and doing a lot of printing from home on inkjet or sending out to a lab. So this is the EZO Color Edge CG247X LED monitor. It's a 24-inch monitor. It displays up to 70% gamut for Adobe RGB files, so that's really excellent. The Macintosh monitors are also very, very good for doing editing and printing as well. But whether or not you're using one of these monitors like EZO or Lacey, or you're using a Mac monitor, you want to make sure that you are calibrating your monitor first. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about calibration. This is the X-Rite i1 Display Pro colorimeter and color calibrator. So this is a great device that's going to allow you to profile your monitor and set up all of your color um, for printing. You're going to spend anywhere from about $225 to $350 for a good one of these. And they're very easy to use. And I recommend probably doing a monitor calibration at least once every 2 to 3 months, just to make sure that, or at least especially before you're going to send out images for print or do a big batch of inkjet printing at home. So you can get one of these to calibrate your monitor. And if you have a monitor that's not doing so well, you may want to look into upgrading your monitor to something like this. They're pretty expensive, coming in at around $2,000, but they're excellent if you're really seriously into printing. Now, the other thing that we need to talk about is the paper that you're printing on. So, for instance, if you're going to send your images out to a photo lab, like for instance, Aspen Creek Photo is one that I will use occasionally. If you go to their FAQ section of their site, or any, pro lab site. So if I come here to Bay Photo and go over to support, I can also find great information on prepping the images. So here is their file size and file preparation guidelines. You can click on that and read through them. Okay. And let's read through Aspen Creek's. They accept both JPEG, TIFF, PNG, but JPEG is preferred. So you want to make sure that your files are in the 8-bit format, okay, not 16-bit. So if you've been doing 16-bit editing, you want to make sure that you convert over to 8-bit before you save the image to go off to print. And I would recommend the Adobe RGB profile, but they will also take sRGB. But for a greater color gamut, you're going to want the Adobe RGB. And then this goes into naming the files, color correction versus no color correction. What I would recommend, if you can get your lab to send you an ICC profile for the type of paper or printer they're using that you can load into either Photoshop or Lightroom so you can soft proof the image before you send it out, do that. If not, you might want to order a small size print like a 4x6 or a 5x7 or even an 8x10 that's only going to cost you a couple bucks, and have that done, bring it back, and then evaluate what the print looks like to what you're seeing on your monitor, and then you'll know what kind of changes you may or may not have to make to the image before sending it to the lab to have it printed. Does that make sense? So that's about it when you're doing online ordering for printing. It's a little more complicated when we're doing stuff for inkjet printing, okay? So let's go ahead and jump into Adobe Lightroom. And let's say I wanted to print this image right here, okay? I'm going to jump over to the Develop panel. And the first thing I want to hit here is I want to basically prep the image before I go into the print dialog, okay? So I'm going to click on S to do a soft proof, okay? And you want to right click on this and make sure that you have paper white set up. All right, so it's going to simulate the paper type as best as it possibly can. You're going to be printing on white paper, so paper white is the best choice. And you can tell when I did this, the contrast and the colors change a little bit on the image. So now you want to go ahead and load your profile. So let's talk about profiles real quick. So let's say, one of my favorite papers that I like to print on is the Hammermühle photo luster paper. It's a 260 gram paper. It's a beautiful paper. It has, it's like a semi-matte, but it has a very nice shine to it. It's a really nice inkjet paper to print with at home. But first I need to get that ICC profile to use, all right? So I can go to Hammermühle's website, and I can simply look up the ICC profile for that paper. So this is in the Hammermühle Support Profile Center, and I simply put in the type of paper that I'm going to be printing on, the manufacturer of my printer, and then the model of the printer. And then it's going to give me that ICC profile is going to pop up. I'm then going to click on that to download it. Once it's downloaded up here, I'm going to open up that folder, and I'm going to take that profile, and I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go up to, this is on a Macintosh, you'll have to look up the instructions for a PC. I'm going to go to Go, and then I'm going to go down to Computer. I'm going to click on my Macintosh HD drive, my hard drive. I'm going to go to Library, double click on that, come down to Color Sync, double click into that, and then go into my Profiles folder, and I'm going to paste that profile into this folder. And then once the profile is in there, it's going to show up inside of Photoshop, and it's going to show up inside of Lightroom. What you'll need to do if you had any of your editing applications open, you're going to need to shut those down and then reopen them again. So now that I have the image, I'm going to click S to have it ready for soft proofing. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to create proof copy, which is basically like creating a virtual copy. Okay, so this can be my print copy that I work off of for now on. And then I want to click on the profile and then go to Other, and then just find the profile of the paper that I have loaded into my Profiles folder, and I can click on that profile in the drop down now. So this is going to be with the Hammermühle Photo Luster. And you can see when I click on that, it changed it, but I want to also simulate the paper and the ink, okay? So I'm going to click on that. And that's going to give me a fairly, if my screen is calibrated properly, that's going to give me a pretty darn close representation of what the print is going to look like. And it has changed a little bit, like, so some of the shadows are a little weak now. So I'm going to have to kind of go back in and make some adjustments to the image, which is why I recommend doing this on a virtual copy and not your master file, because the adjustments that you're doing for this paper will be different from other papers that you do, and you don't want this to become your master file. So what you can do is create a collection over here for that type of paper that you're printing with at home, and then any image that you soft proof and correct for that, you can drag that into that collection folder, and then it will be ready for future printing, okay, as you go forward. You can have it in your Hammermühle photo folder, or in your Epson photo folder, for instance, okay? So once you've soft proofed it and you've made some adjustments to the color, saturation and the contrast and the black points and the white points, at this point you'll be ready to go into the print module. So we'll come over here into the print module at this point, okay? And we're going to click on single sheet, all right? Rotate to fit. Okay, so if I'm printing long ways, I don't want the print to come out like this. I want to rotate to fit it to the paper that I'm using, all right? I can change my layout here. I'm not going to do that, but so this is for an 8x10 sheet of paper, so then I can just change the width and the height accordingly to get the size that I want to print. And then I want to come down and I can I can turn these on or off, and this is just for helping you get the image ready, okay? Show you where your bleeds are and your rulers. You can turn the grids on and off if you want. And then come down to the page color. I don't do anything with that. I don't do any watermarking. I don't do any page options. Don't worry about printing the photo information. This is a fine art print. I don't want any of that stuff on my print. If you're doing a contact print to send to a client, you could set some of that stuff up that might have the file number on it, for instance. The next thing I want to do is make sure that draft printing is turned off. Okay, I want to make sure that is turned off. All right, and then I'm going to set the print resolution for Inkjet. That's 240 ppi. Print sharpening, I'm going to go to standard, and then I'm going to choose the media type. And that's also something you can look up on the different paper manufacturers' websites. What's the best setting? Typically, for anything that isn't glossy, like a luster, a matte, or even a fine art paper like a photo rag or a satin, you're going to want to use the print sharpening for matte in standard. All right. Now you can do 16-bit output printing on an inkjet, so I want to recommend that you turn that on. It's going to take twice as long to print the image, but it's going to give you a much better result in the final in the final print. And then finally, you want to go into color management, and then you have your profile set up. You've made your adjustments. All right. So make sure that I'm going to reset any of these print adjustments. I'll turn that off because I already made my adjustments in the Develop Soft Proofing panel. And then finally, I don't have my printer turned in right now. I would just, at this point, go out to the printer and find the printer that I'm using and load it up. And then there's some default settings in there. So if you're using an Epson or a Canon printer, you want to read through what the best settings are for that printer for optimal quality. Okay, and so there's going to be a couple that you'll check off for that, but once you get that ready, you'll be good to go, and then you can finally hit print, and it will print the job. Then you can compare and contrast your results. Okay, now if you're sizing in Photoshop, what you're going to want to do is right click on the photo, your master file, and come to Edit in Adobe Photoshop CC. All right, and we're going to pretend that we're prepping this for a metallic print that's going out to a photo lab. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is go up to image mode 8 bits. Okay, because remember, when I'm sending to a lab, I'm not going to have 16 bits. I'm going to have 8 bits. And then image mode, and make sure that I have RGB color checked. Okay, that's important. Make sure you have those two things checked: 8 bits and RGB color. The next thing you want to do is size the image appropriately for the print that you're doing. So we're going to pretend that I'm doing a 24 by 36 inch metal print. So I'm now going to come into image and then go to image size, and I'm going to turn the print resolution to this for 300 for output to a lab. Change the change this from pixels to inches, and then type in the height, which is 24, and then I'm getting 35.96, so I'm going to go 24.1. I just want to make sure that I'm hitting both of these, the short and the long edge of the print size. I'm going to set the resampling to bicubic smoother, and then click OK. All right, so now I have my print sized up for the lab. The next thing I want to do is come over here to View, and I'm going to go to Proof Setup and then Custom. And that's where you're going to be able to load any of those custom profiles that you had. So here it is, the photo Epson photo for the Hemimule luster. And I can click on that and click OK. So if you are going to a photo lab, you're not going to do this soft proof section. You're just going to make sure that you are keeping the profile to RGB color. Okay, unless the lab does have an ICC profile for the paper that you can load. In that case, you want to go ahead and download that, and then once again come into the view, go into the proof setup, and find the ICC profile that you've loaded, and we'll just pretend that this is it. It's the Hemimule luster. Click on that. Relative colorimetric is fine. Black point compression, good. Simulate paper color. And then click OK. So now it did change the image around a little bit as it did before, so I would have to, in Photoshop now, do some adjustments to the image to reintroduce contrast or color balance to proof it to get the colors in the image as best that I can get them. All right, once you're there and you've done that, you're now going to go over here and sharpen the image, okay? Sharpen for print. So we're going to come up here to View and go to Print Size. I'm sorry, View and then 100%. All right, and then we're going to go and make a duplicate layer. So Command J or Control J. And then we're going to come over to Filter and we're going to go to Sharpen and then Unsharp Mask. And that's going to allow us now to dial in our sharpening, okay? So I'm going to choose a sample point over here. I'm going to keep my radius down pretty low, like 0.5 to 1.0. We'll go to 0.7 for this. I typically turn the threshold up to about 5 to, that way I don't over sharpen the image. And then start moving the sharpening slider up. And just do this until the image starts to look nice and crisp, okay, without over sharpening the file, okay? If you get to the point where it looks like I think I've over sharpened it a little bit, there's some banding happening or some strange stuff, it just looks a little too ultra realistic, just pull the sharpening back off of that a little bit until you get it about right, and then click OK. Now, one of the advantages of doing this on a layer adjustment is there may be some areas in the image that you don't want to sharpen, like the smooth water, for example. At that point, I can go ahead and add a mask to that layer adjustment for sharpening, and then grab my brush for B, and then make sure that black is my color. And then, at about 100%, I can start to just paint black onto the mask where I don't want the sharpening to show up in the final print, okay? And then I would just simply go through the image and mask out like all the sharpening down through here where the smooth water is and through here, and then maybe even in some of the deeper shadows I may remove sharpening from some areas like that as well, so that way I don't pick up noise or grain in the final print. Once you're done with masking out the sharpening, you're then going to flatten the image, okay, and then you're going to save it. So you're going to go File and then Save As. Create a folder probably on your desktop. We'll call it Prints Aspen Creek Photo, for example. That's the lab we're going to. And then we're going to change the format to JPEG, because I typically send JPEG files out to the lab for printing. You can send TIFF, that's fine. I don't think it's going to give you a great benefit to do that though. And then make sure that our embedded color profile of Adobe RGB is checked on, and click, give it a name. So let's give it a name. So we're going to call this Archangel Falls 24 by 36 dash metal print. Okay, so that way, once I save this now, if I want to send the image back out to the lab at any point to have another 24 by 36 or even smaller, I can print down off of that now. I could print a 20 by 30, I could print a 16 by 24, 12 by 18. I have it sharpened, and I've done the soft proofing for that media and for that printer. I can simply just, grab that JPEG file and zip it over to them for another print to be made. I hope this helps you guys out in your process with printing. I hope that it made sense. If you have any questions, go ahead and send me an email. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I am home in the office for some time to come, but I'm slammed with online work, so I will get back to you as fast as I can, but it could take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to hear back from me. Thanks so much, and have a great one, guys.